Welcome to The Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by Jump Scares, because loud, sudden noises are easier than writing a good movie. Let's dim the lights and start the show.
Welcome everybody to The Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Robot Arms Apartments. Come stay in the coziest apartments in New York City with closet space you could live in, only at Robot Arms Apartments. Welcome everyone to The Pestle. I am Wes.
And I am Todd.
And this is the film analysis podcast that parents hate, but the kids love. No.
I don't know
what
parents hate and kids are indifferent about.
Right, that's probably true. More accurate.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of film analysis, and we were just talking before the episode started. You know, you were making some interesting points and I think valid points. Like you were on set recently, and I think maybe today or yesterday, and I guess give a brief recap of a guy was thinking about getting a Invisalign, and you were like, nah.
Yeah. So what I was saying, and I'll just say it again, is that, so Wes, you're doing Invisalign right now.
True.
True. And I just finished it at the beginning of this past year.
Fact.
And fact. True and fact. And this guy who was my co-actor, he told me that so he was this big dude, big black guy, and he has gaps in his teeth, and he was saying that he was about to go see a orthopedist about doing Invisalign. And I immediately, for whatever reason, even though I just did it and finished it, and I know you're doing it, and I have nothing against it.
Yeah, orthopedist or orthodontist?
Orthodontist. Okay. Tomato.
Yeah. You could see an orthopedist about what you just did.
Or a foot and
an
orthodontist.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you for correcting me. I immediately, for whatever reason, said, dude, you don't need that. And then I didn't even think about it. It wasn't like I just did it, and so I have an opinion about it, and I'm negative against it. Like I have no opinion other than good. Like I like my teeth, but my teeth weren't like totally messed up, or weren't unique in a way. His teeth were like very unique. He has, the gap in the middle. What's their name? Bless you. Anyway, like he has some gaps in his teeth, and I was like, man, it makes you look unique. It makes you look like you have this specific look. I wouldn't fix it if I were you. I mean, you might be self-conscious about it, and if so, totally fix it if it makes you feel better. But I think you look great. And that translates to, we started talking about B-list actors, and B-list only meaning like not the Tom Cruises, not the Brad Pitts that always get the main leading role, but actors that are really amazing that you recognize in everything that you see them in. You're like, oh, that's that guy from that thing, but you can't say their name. Now, let's just back up for a second. If my son wanted to play football and he wanted to make it to the NFL, I would probably tell him, dude, be a kicker or a deep snapper, because you're not gonna get the brain damage that like you would as a linebacker. You'll have a longer career. You'll make plenty of money, and you'll always have a job. You'll always looking for great kickers and great deep snappers. It's the same with like B-list actors. Like you can be a millionaire B-list actor. You can live easily on your art as a B-list actor. You don't have to be the Tom Cruise or the Brad Pitt. I don't have to write a number one hit single to like live off music. Like there is so much there's a huge breadth of work out there. And so anyway, I was telling him like, man, that's unique. That's you. Like if it were up to you and some other guy with perfect teeth, I don't know, and I'm casting for a film, I might go with you just because of the way you look is so unique, and depending on the role, right? But if it's you and some other guy and you both have, look very similar and you have perfect teeth, how are they going to know the difference between you two if everything is equal, else is equal? And so
Yeah, no, I think
it was
there's
just funny.
there's a lot to say for that. And part of it does depend on, like you said, your goals. You know, if you're going to be X or Y, then whether you're trying to be a TV show, actor, or a dramatic actor in movies, those are completely different things. Especially whenever you start thinking about traditionally, anyway, this is changing as we get into this streaming model of creation. But I think for the longest time, because TV was on TV, everyone, the shows were brighter, literally, and the actors looked better, right? Much prettier people. And I think that has a lot to do with the advertisements that ran around it. You don't want the audience to feel too jarred coming to and from advertisements, and attractive people are just much easier to watch from a more aesthetic point of view. Like there's a reason why we like good-looking people. This is just human nature, genetics, evolution, whatever you want to call it. And so soap operas, right? They're gonna have the hottest people, and the reason for that is, very simple, because you're also about to run an advertisement right afterwards, and you don't want those worlds to be so wildly different that people stop watching your show. It all kind of needs to feel like this seamless integration. And so, but if you're going to be, a dramatic actor, or more of a supporting character, then character adds a lot. It helps you be identifiable in the audition room and in TV shows. You're just going to get noticed a lot easier than, the super attractive man or woman. Like, you just kind of fade into the background if you're too attractive in some cases. Your acting has to be that much better, and you have to get that much more interesting opportunities and role decisions, or else you are just going to get lumped in as, attractive person. It's easy to get lost in the weeds. Whereas if you keep whatever, a gap in your teeth or the mole on your cheek, like those are going to be things that's like, maybe you're not going to get leading man parts or leading lady parts. Sorry, that sounds really funny.
I didn't say it. You found it yourself. That's fine.
But those leading roles may go to someone else, but you'll have a longer career. You'll have more interesting roles, I think, to some degree. Right. There's only so many times Adam Sandler is going to be able to play the perfect person. Like, all the movies he writes for himself are usually going to have him being the perfect person with the perfect line who never has any flaws. Like, okay, I mean, I'm glad you never mess up a play, whatever, in football, the longest yard or whatever. But that's exhausting. It's not fun. You're going to be forgettable after too long. You need to play characters with interesting developments and things to overcome. And a lot of that stuff, is perfectly exhibited in supporting characters. And those supporting characters are what they are because of their interesting, natures. Because you also have to, because you're a supporting character, you have that much less time on screen. And so the easier it is to identify and fulfill your role in the film, the better. And all those interesting characteristics help you achieve that aim to some degree or another. Yeah. I don't know. I think you're right. I think there's a lot to be said for it. I mean, you're also right whenever you're like, man, if this is something that's going to give you a higher quality of life, then, do your thing. But if you're only going to do it because you think this is going to help your career, there's more than one way to view that, decision. Nice. Yeah. Same, yeah. Same, yeah. Mine are very fun to look at. Like, I'm like, okay, we can make an improvement here. All that said, what are we gonna do today?
We are covering Tucker and Dale versus Evil. So if you haven't seen this, go watch it. I just watched it on Netflix, but apparently it's not there anymore. I guess as of today,
yeah,
it's not there anymore. As of October 1.
Perfect timing.
I'm glad I watched it ahead of time then. So if you haven't seen it, go find it somewhere and watch it before this episode, because we are going to talk about some spoilers.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if this doesn't get picked up, because it was on Hulu for a while and then it was on Netflix for a while. I'm sure someone else, Prime or someone else, will probably have it before too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about a few things. We'll dive into story and writing. We'll talk about final girls, dramatic irony, violent humor, hiding exposition through humor. And we'll also touch on cinematography, supporting story perspective, as well as practical effects and other such stuff and things and stuff.
So here's a synopsis of the film. Affable hillbillies, Tucker and Dale, are on vacation at their dilapidated mountain cabin when they're mistaken for murderers by a group of preppy college kids. It's directed by Eli Craig, written by Eli Craig and Morgan Jurgenson, cinematography by David Geddes, starring Alan Tudyk as Tucker, Tyler Labine as Dale, Katrina Bowden as Alli, and Jesse Moss as Chad.
Tucker! Holy Mother of God! What happened to you? Are you okay?
What happened to me?
Some kid. He just hooked himself right into the wood chipper. What? Head first right into the wood chipper. From his shoes and his pants, it looked like it might have been one of the college kids. What the hell happened to her?
What? Oh, she got knocked down and fell into the shitter hole right next to me.
Is that your blood?
What? No, it's college kid blood. One of those suckers came running out of nowhere and speared himself straight through the gut and died right on top of me, Todd.
Holy crap.
I know.
Calm down. Don't cry. Calm down. Okay. Get a hold of yourself.
All right. I know what this is.
What?
This is a suicide pact.
Is a what?
These kids are coming out here and they're killing themselves all over the woods.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Holy shit. We have got to hide all of the sharp objects.
We have got to hide all of the sharp
Like,
objects.
that's a serious plan in their head. They're like, we're going to do this. We're going to hide the sharp objects out of the woods. This is such a good film, man. I loved every moment of it.
Was this your first time
it just
seeing
pokes
it?
so. Yes, it was. I had never even heard of it before this. So I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I assumed Tucker and Dale versus Evil is going to be funny, but you never know. And then, a few minutes in, I was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. There's like 9 kids in this SUV, already in the first scene. And they just keep popping up. There's like 2 in front, and then there's 3 in the back seat. And there's 3 more. And then there's 1 in the very back. It's like ridiculous. And then, but I didn't really know what to expect. And then I realized, oh, the evil is the college kids. This is fantastic. I just loved every bit of it. Like their hapless like luck of, the kids killing themselves. It was just fantastic. Just so great. The acting was really great. The timing, the delivery of the jokes and the funny bits by Tucker and Dale was so great. I loved Alli. I thought she was lovable. At the same time, she's just gorgeous, but at the same time, like you could tell she was different than the others. And it was great. I loved that it worked out in the end for Dale and her, and that Tucker didn't die, and that Chad did. It was just a great popcorn movie. Literally, that's what I did. I sat in my kitchen on the little island, and I just ate popcorn and watched this thing, and I was so happy. It was just so entertaining.
It's so unexpected. Like, I saw this in theaters. Me and my mom.
You did?
Yeah. We like to do.
When did it come out? When was it?
Oh, gosh. 2010, maybe?
27?
2011?
Oh, that long ago.
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
Forever ago.
Okay.
And we like to do movie marathons. And so we'll go see anywhere from 3 to 6 movies in a day. And yeah, we'll make a whole day of it, man. We'll just eat at the Alamo. And this was when I was like, this is going to be fun. Like, I just have a feeling that this is going to be hilarious. And so, yeah, we were dead. Like, this thing, they just stack all the humor so absolutely perfectly. And I'll definitely dive into that in detail. But it just hits. Alan Tudyk is so good. And for me, he definitely was a big reason why I went to see it, because I didn't know anybody else in this film except him. But Tyler Labine as Dale really caught me, man. This guy just the level of absolute sincerity, like what you were just talking about. Like, this is a serious plan. They're gonna really try to hide some sharp objects. Like,
Hide all the sharp objects. Just gonna try. Yeah.
It destroyed me in all the best ways. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'll just rip through, notes here and
let's
jump in at will as usual. Like, from a story and writing perspective, they take a really good advantage of the classic horror genre, right? Of the killer in the woods. And there's a lot of these callbacks to the classics, right? Friday the 13th, The Hills Have Eyes, Chainsaw Massacre, all these types of horror films where people are where they shouldn't be and they pay a heavy penalty for it. Like, they even call back to the final girl at the very end, who turns out to be Chad's mom. And just as an explanation, if you've never heard this term, final girls, it's just kind of this catch-all term that was used during the 80s whenever you'd got to the end of one of these films that I'm talking about, and there's one person left, and it was usually, the sweet, innocent girl that survived and takes down the bad guy or the villain or the whatever, the creature. And because so many of these movies had this trope, they just kind of all got lumped into this idea of the final girl. And so this movie has the same thing, right? It opens, well, it doesn't open, but towards the beginning, you get this horror story, right? The campfire story of this slaughter, this massacre that happens in the woods. And of course, we find out at the end that the final girl was Chad's mom, and that becomes his backstory, which illuminates his crazy fixation on killing, is because he wants to kill Tucker and Dale because he thinks they're the kind of people that got his father killed, not understanding that his dad was actually the killer. And so they're trying to create this, I don't know, genetic or whatever, this history behind the reason of why he's got this murder gene in him or whatever. It doesn't really matter that much. It's just kind of this light nod to he's the evil.
I didn't even care.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't even care to try to understand. I just enjoyed everything around it.
It would have totally worked if they didn't insert that, but it still works even though it's in there. Like, it doesn't help or hurt much anything. But it does change the fundamental inciting question. This whole setup, this whole scenario, from, there's evil in the woods to what if the evil isn't the hillbillies, but the college kids who are judging them. And so traditionally, right, the evil was sin. These kids go into the woods and they do drugs, they have sex, and therefore they're violating morality, hence they should die. But what if the real morality that's being violated is them judging people they don't know based on their own preconceived notions of the world or other cultures, which I love. That's a really great underpinning, element to this story. But now the classic archetypes are playing against type. So Tucker and Dale now are friendly, kind souls with dreams and aspirations, and the college kids are these judgmental morons. And so we open with the kids driving to the country, which it's such a painful intro. Right? The dialogue, these tropey cliches, it all feels really clunky and silly. And like 30 seconds into this thing, I'm like, man, this hurts. I don't want to watch this. I don't want to spend time in this. But I think what the film is trying to do is help us to not identify with them. We're judging them. We hate them instead of being charmed by them. And this is very fundamental because they are making sure we do not like these kids, and therefore we have no problem laughing at their death. It's imperative that we dislike these kids. And like even the found footage intro ensures that we understand who the real bad guy is from the very beginning, that it's not going to be, Tucker and Dale. We've already seen the killer. And so we see the found footage of the couple being killed, and then we flash back to 3 days ago. Which I really just realized that that intro, the found footage intro, is also kind of an inversion of sorts. Normally at the end of the movie, you have this post-credits footage of what happens. The killer survived. Well, that's what that is. The killer survived, except we insert that into the beginning of the film. you have to understand that he didn't die at the end of this movie. He's still alive, and the proof of that is in the intro. And so they kind of hid in plain sight what happened to the killer. He's still alive and kicking. And so if you watch that very first footage, they say all the things that give you the hint that he's still alive. Oh, this is still a crime scene. We shouldn't be here. Like, blah, blah, blah. And so that kind of surprised me as I was hitting play right before we started this again. Like I sometimes like to have the movie playing while I'm doing the show.
That's smart.
Yeah, it adds new dimension, right? Rewatching things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so all that to say, the clear understanding is imperative to the audience's ability to have dramatic irony, right? So we establish the kids, and then we pass the rednecks, and then the rednecks pass them. And while they're passing, right, they have that kind of look on their face that you're starting to judge them too. Like, oh God, these guys are redneck hillbillies up to no good. And then we have that bad run-in at the gas station, right? They're looking and judging the college kids or whatever. And then we get to know the quote unquote hillbillies, Tucker and Dale. Like, this establishes dramatic irony because now the viewer knows something the characters do not, right? Tucker and Dale are assuming the best. As we get to know them, we're seeing through their perspective that, oh man, look at these cool kids and that beautiful girl. I want to go talk to her. And so we understand from their perspective that they're just regular people. But we also already understand from the college kids' perspectives that they're assuming the worst. And they're judging these people. And so we have to establish early on that the kids are seeing evil, scary rednecks, and that we also understand that Tucker and Dale are really good people. This establishes both perspectives so that we always know why the college kids don't know the evil rednecks are actually good people. And in this movie, perspective is absolutely everything. And so that is this fundamental base layer that the movie establishes. And because next we have I think, humor through sincerity. Tucker and Dale are adorably innocent. Like, they go into this cabin in the woods that, Tucker's bought. And the first thing that they think is, man, the last owners must have been a real news junkie, right? He's got murder clippings all over the wall. And their honest thought is like, well, wow, these guys must have been, really into the news.
And I want to say that I think that as, so in the relationship, you have it's very much, another trope here where you have kind of like the leader. Mm-hmm. And you have, it's of mice and men kind of thing where you've got, the the leader and then the dumb guy.
Such a great comparison.
And they call it out though, because even Dale says constantly how stupid he is, but his specific superpower is he remembers everything he's ever heard, which is literally like the most brilliant you could ever be as a human being, right? So it's funny, like, here's the trope. The trope is I have the leader, who's Tucker, and I have the stupid guy, who's Dale. But, Dale is actually the smarter of the two when you get down to it. Yeah, he's a savant. So they call it out. But, like, as loving and dopey as Dale is, I feel like you buy into that because the leader, Tucker, is also super lovable.
Yeah.
He's not this lead. He's not like the stereotypical leader that like always tells Dale what to do. He only gets mad at him. Like, he gets mad at Dale, but it's out of love. Yeah. From the very beginning, they set it up where he's telling Dale, "You're a good-looking guy. Go talk to her. You got better in you." Like, the first thing that happens is he tells Dale that you're worth it. And then one of the last things that happens, as he tells Dale to go save her, is like, "I'll be okay," whatever. And don't believe if anybody tells you that you're less than, like, he's like loves Dale so much. But so they base his leadership off of smarts. And so that's where we're believing he's the leader because he's smarter. But then we find out that actually Dale is the smartest person in this entire film. So it's they kind of throw a wrench in it. But anyway, I bookend that with saying that Dale is the lovable, dopey guy, but I think that we buy into that they both are so much because Alan Tudyk is so perfect at playing a character that you love no matter what.
Yeah.
Like he just is brilliant at roles like this, where he can play stupid, but he can play stupid and strong at the same time.
That's No, I recently watched The Knight's Tale, and that's him to a T in that once again. Like he's playing this like very violent guy that you absolutely love and adore. And yeah, he's magical at carrying that humor and like cutting edge. Like he's absolutely able to tear you down and make you feel bad, but in a fun way. Like you never take him too serious.
I think it's because, and I think a lot of actors like this, they have one look that they do all the time that is their look. It's like a face that they do. It's like their face that they are masters of, and he has one, and it's a confused. It's this face where he does it, and you're like he's confused, and he's trying to understand it, but everything is just so hard right now that he just can't. It's like, and it's something like with his jaw. I think he just does this whole like. And if you're listening to this instead of watching it on YouTube, you don't know what I'm doing. But watch this movie or any movie that he's in, and he always has this kind of like thing where if something gets difficult or challenging or he's frustrated, he has a specific look that he does.
Yeah, it's like he's furrowing his jaw.
Yes, I guess. And I think a lot of actors that do this kind of thing, they kind of have a similar thing. It might not be that face. Right. It's a different, but they have their own way of conveying through facial expression.
Yeah, it's disarming. So it's very disarming.
Good point. Yeah.
But you're right. They both have really redeemable qualities about them. And all of that comes through their absolute sincerity. You never feel like they're winking at the camera or being silly on purpose. It's all completely sincere, right? He sees, Dale sees Tucker's fingers have been cut off, and his first thought is, they cut off his bowling fingers. Like, that's such an honest reaction.
So good. So good.
That's something that they love to do, and now he's like, oh no, we can't have fun no more.
Oh my God. And the fishing conversation where he doesn't like fishing. He's like, did I upset you? Like, a little. It's perfect. It's like all the tropes of like what hillbillies are supposed to love to do, and Dale is like not that. They have board games. They have board games in there. It's like that's right. Board games. What? So good. Anyway.
But it's key.
Like and when they walk,
please.
When they first walk into the cabin, and Dale goes, it's a little dusty. I lost it. I just lost it. There's like shit everywhere, cobwebs hanging from stuff, like, dead things hanging from the ceiling, like murder on the walls. It's a little dusty.
But it's so key. Like their emotional investment is the absolute key to their humor. They're so sincere in their delivery, which adds to the dramatic irony of misunderstanding the situation that they're in. Right? Even at the end, and this goes to Alli as well, like, there's this really big plot twist that Chad is a hillbilly. And, Allie's trying to be very sincere and helpful. And she's like, it's true, you're half hillbilly. And like, it's just so funny. And it just nails the funny bone because they're being absolutely sincere in their delivery. And I think the next layer in like the humor for me is how violent and absolutely gory it is. And I think the gore really enhances the comedy. Because seeing such brutal death juxtaposed against Tucker and Dale's confusion absolutely heightens the fun, because the dramatic irony we're enjoying creates an incredible amount of empathy for the characters. And it's kind of this compounded understanding hitting all at once that adds to the humor, right? The realism of the violence merging with the confusion on the characters' face, and our understanding of why they're confused and why it's happening in the first place, and the fact that we're absolutely not on the side of the kids being killed. We only have empathy for the hillbillies, and it's all just really overwhelming to the viewer because it's perfectly constructed in the build-up. These slow layers are just constantly adding, and then finally, whenever you see, the kid impaling himself, running from Tucker, with the chainsaw, and he's, seeing the bee die, you're like, oh yeah, he gets it. But even more than that, right? Whenever the kid impales himself on top of Dale, and like he's just bleeding and screaming, and Dale is like screaming, and he's just the horror on his face, and the confusion of the kid jumping into the wood chipper, with the blood just absolutely gushing everywhere all over Tucker as he's trying to help him, and he's like so concerned, and it's just overwhelming. And it's their innocent deductions, that adds even more humor to it, right? The gore and the innocence, and they just want to help. It's a suicide pact, like we gotta help these kids. They don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
it's freaking amazing, and it just adds so much because it's simple. There's nothing really complicated about this film. It's there right on its face. They're not asking really anything of the audience other than simply pay attention, and you're going to have a really good time because you're empathizing and seeing everything from everyone's perspective. And there's this element of you that says, man, if only these characters would slow down and understand. But at the same time, because you just don't care about the kids, you're okay with it. Like, more than anything, you just want Tucker and Dale to be fine. You're concerned for their safety, and so you're alleviated every time they get out of a bad situation.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not that I necessarily didn't like the kids. I think that really, the only kid that I really just didn't like was Chad, but that they gave him a name Chad, I think probably for a reason. Sorry to all the Chads out there. Believe me, I'm Todd. I've had plenty of the same. So it wasn't necessarily that I didn't like the kids. It was more that I just loved Tucker and Dale. And so seeing the kids, the kids trying to kill Tucker, and if it was just the kids like being out there and annoying Tucker and Dale, that'd be one thing. But they're literally trying to kill them. So it's like, yeah, no, I kind of need you to die now. It's
for the best.
It was acceptable because it's like that when the first one died, I was like, and I think that was the kid running through the kid running through the forest and impaled himself.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, it's that kind of movie. Oh, okay.
Because it's brutal.
And it was pretty jarring because that kid, and specifically, I didn't really see him do anything real bad. It was like more of like a shock and awe thing than it was. And I was warring with myself inside, like, am I okay with that? Like, okay, I think so. 'Cause they're trying to kill them. Okay. And as it went on, I was more okay with the first one.
But that's a really good point. They ease you in with that first kill, and they give you this moment of satisfaction of seeing him recognizing where his mistake was, because that bee kind of floats around in his face, and you see the slow realization of, oh, he was running from the bees, and he's dead. And after that point, now you are introduced to the sheer violence, and you understand that this kid understood his mistake. And then everything after that gets so much easier because it gets almost to the point of being over the top. I don't think it really achieves being over the top in the sense of their blood produces the normal amount of blood that you would expect. It's not Tarantino. Yeah. We're bringing in 50-gallon drums of blood here. It's not over the top in that sense. But the violence is so visceral. Quite literally, like they're having this conversation with the cop, and Dale is holding a leg of half of a body, and it's just out there. And it's that kind of juxtaposition of the innocence with the brutality that makes it really delightful, because it's so absurd, but it's so honest. Everything in there is honest.
Yeah,
I will say one of the hard parts for this movie and for horror comedies is killing women for humor. Very difficult. I've had projects where we spent a lot of time discussing and dissecting this, because it's much more difficult than men, because we empathize with women more. Right or wrong, that's just the way it is. We don't like to see women harmed. This is either cultural or biological. I have no idea. I'm not going to hazard a guess, but it's a reality at this point in time. And because of that, it's more offensive and it contradicts the humor that we're aiming for. If you want us to laugh at a woman dying, you have your work cut out for you. But we do have 3 women in this movie, and one of them, of course, is the final girl. But we also do kill 2 women. The first is semi-killed by a weed eater, but it's not from our people. It's almost self-inflicted, right, by one of her friends. The weed eater also hides her face as it's kind of getting, destroyed. And so it makes it less personal. And so the goal through their methodology in the film is to remove the personalization of it, hide their faces, hide the actual death. The second woman dies in a huge explosion right after she kills her friend, and she accidentally burns him to death. And then she starts smoking a cigarette, kind of adding to the idea that she's not helping at all. But we still don't.
She's the reason.
She's the reason.
Yeah.
And then the building explodes, right? She's smoking a cigarette next to all these flammable things. And the building explodes. And so once again, we're emotionally removed from them dying in a very up close, intimate way. Because they both effectively die in that explosion. Like the first one got, beat up really brutally. But she was still alive and asking for help. And even that was kind of funny in the sense of you're watching this really, gross demonstration of what was a beautiful woman now has no face. And it's just I don't know. I didn't really laugh at that scene, but you're also like this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And you're almost glad that the building explodes to some extent. But removing
it's funny you say that, because that was the one that I was like, I don't like that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a negative reaction to that. I mean, I think I had a negative reaction to all of them just because I don't like seeing that kind of thing ever. But especially to kids, but especially to female kids, like that. Anyway, the weed eater thing, definitely was the worst out of all of them, I think, because like if you just have a girl in the corner smoking a cigarette and then the place explodes, you don't see anything.
Yeah.
She's not in pain. It's just
it doesn't feel like violence against women.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just something that happened.
And I think they were also going for the kind of the bam, bam, bam effect. Like all these things pile on top of each other very, very quickly so that you're not dwelling on any one specific moment. Instead, you're just trying to follow the sequence of events. And then an explosion. And now it's like, okay, that's over with. Holy crap. And so that is a tricky thing. I don't know how many horror comedies really accomplish satisfying and humorous death of women. That's a problem. Like we have a side project that we've been working on that has to tackle that same issue. And I have my theories. I think, you probably want to not be in a close up, and in general, for humor's sake, you don't usually want to be in a close up of death. If you want to laugh at it, you want to be, removed. And so that's one aspect. It needs to be self-inflicted to a large extent. I don't think you can have someone else kill a woman and that be funny. Like it needs to be something that she self-inflicts and that she deserves. And that's the best you're going to, I think, be able to do. Getting a laugh out of a woman dying is very, very challenging. And I think they did their best in terms of, let's just hit the escape key and not even try to make it funny. Let's just get it over with. Quick and painless. Another thing I kind of liked was hiding exposition as comedy. I thought that was really clever. They sit down for tea, which is already pretty good. We're going to have the bad guy and the perceived bad guy both sit down, and we're going to air our grievances like in the middle of the height of the absurdity. And we, of course, that's when we hear his backstory, Chad's backstory. And Dale is just kind of like, I don't even remember what his response to it was. It was just like, I'm not enjoying this. So it's kind of the extent of like, I want this to stop. But whenever they sit down for tea, the thing that's funny, the exposition as comedy is him saying this big bad guy who's been all about murder is, as he's watching Alli pour the tea, is that chamomile? Because I can't have chamomile. It messes with my asthma. Like,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but it's funny. It's a funny line it's disarming in the sense of you don't ascribe any significance to it, because it's just this. It feels like you're undercutting your bad guy in a really funny way. But in reality, becomes very key at the end of the film whenever we line up Dale's memory. I don't know if it's necessarily photographic, but he has this perfect memory to recall facts. And he recalls that later on in two ways. Like, for one, he remembered that this guy has allergies, but also remembers the key ingredient that creates allergies from chamomile is this extract or whatever. And he
just
that.
like spews it, like all the data. So good. Yeah.
It's perfect. Like, in being able to, have that exposition and enjoy it as exposition and as comedy is really fantastic writing. That's
Agreed.
something that's, hard to do. So many films, the boring films, the reason that they're boring to you that you don't realize is that it's exposition and you're having to learn things about characters in a way that isn't fun. But learning things about the characters in a way that entertains you at the same time is kind of the secret to making a good movie.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that. A good movie in general, like that, that's not reserved for comedy. Like, in fact, I would say that's comedy is probably the rarest form of this kind of thing. So they did it brilliantly, because that kind of thing should be not reserved, but also employed in every genre that requires exposition, like drama, romance, like all that stuff. Like, don't spoon feed me, man. Like, give it to me for a purpose. Like, have a purpose behind it. And their purpose was for her to be the mediator, right? Which is what she went to school for. So she's sitting down. This is what she went to school for, is going to school for. She learned this. So we're expecting something, whatever. They're sitting down. We're having some humor that goes along with it. We're learning backstories and feelings and all that stuff, which is hilarious, because he's been trying to kill him. Right. And then the story he tells is also hilarious. So like, yeah, there's purpose behind it. And I think that all genres should employ exposition with this kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Because I hate exposition for exposition's sake. The easiest way to lose me is that way. Like, well, there's other easy ways as well, but that's a very easy one.
Absolutely. Completely agree. My last note for story and writing, I didn't have a clever insert for this. I just thought it was really funny, and at best it's kind of endearing. But it's the fact that Tucker keeps pouring beer on his injuries. Like, he's got a swollen face. Pouring a beer, because you see him grab the beer and you just assume that he's going to put it on his face. Like, oh, here's a cold thing, and instead he just pours the beer directly on it. He pours it on his amputated fingers. Like,
yeah.
So it's so specific and weird, and it's brilliant. Like, I don't know. I just find that kind of thing really, really entertaining.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But as far as cinematography, like, I love this. For one, I wouldn't say this is like a brilliantly shot film. It's pretty humdrum, as most comedies are. I don't really go into comedies expecting fantastic cinematography. But I love that the music and cinematography really aid the contrast of supporting the perspectives, right? The scary tones underscore the intention of the moment. We got your friend, coupled with these really ominous tones, reinforces the perspective of the college kids that, oh crap, they're evil and this is a bad, and you're just always identifying with who based on the way it's shot, or more specifically on the way it's color graded, and to some extent the way it's shot, but also the music. Both of these things really are telling two different types of movies. You have a buddy comedy happening and then a scary horror film. And they're just kind of colliding with each other in these two separate worlds. And they're reinforcing that through the color grading, and because, you have the cooler tones with the college kids and the warmer tones for Tucker and Dale up to a certain point. And then you have these other moments, right? The backlit fog mist for the dramatic light streaks, kind of even as he's bringing out the pancakes and we're looking at it from Alli's perspective, like he's coming out of this really heavily smoky room, and you get why. And he's just like, she doesn't like pancakes, you moron. Like, just constantly
like, oh, eggs. Okay. So good. Yeah.
Freaking fantastic. I also really like the practical special effects. There's a lot that's in here. The one that kind of stuck out to me that I think any filmmaker can do, and that's kind of why I wanted to point it out, was the nail gun. There's this moment with the nail gun where he accidentally fires it, right? And just accomplishing that simple effect is incredibly easy, because if you were to just kind of zoom out, take 2 steps back, you would see the nail was already there. It's already just sitting in the side of this chair. But the way that you set that moment up helps you buy into the fact that he just accidentally fired this nail gun. For one, you frame tight on Tucker and Dale framing out the nail so that obviously you don't see it in the shot. And then the actors react to the firing, right? That coupled with the quick pan to reveal the nail, and you add the sound effect of the nail firing and hitting the chair next to Tucker. And it's just all together becomes a very believable moment of crap. He almost just shot his friend in the face with a nail gun, and it's all very simple and, elementary level production quality. In order to get a really good effect, it comes down to camera movement and reactions from the actors. We believe it because we believe them, not necessarily because the effect was so good. There was no effect. It was sound and a camera move. The real effect is in the performance. That's where you're selling it. And so that's all I got. I really love this movie. I learned so much, and I just wish I had a good comparison. I've really looked for another movie as good at the dramatic irony and the ability to layer in comedy through death. And I just haven't found it. All the other horror comedies I feel like I've come across are just comedies that also have horror, not necessarily comedies that have comedy through the horror. So in that way, I think this film is very specific and unique to me anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think I would be surprised if this screenplay wasn't written with them in mind. I just, it's way too, specific. I don't know. I just feel like the idea of writing this with just like seeing a generic human being or someone other than Alan Tudyk, in it might feel a little just off, right? Because it requires a very specific type of acting. Like, okay, you're basing it on humor, like you said. So like other movies, we don't want to name any, but there are some, like most of the movies like this, you're right, they have comedy in them, but it's just another aspect of a horror film, it's not a comedy first. This movie is a comedy first. So you need comedians, you need comic actors to play from beginning to end comedically, right? It's a comedy. Comedies don't deviate from being comedies unless it's like, here's a section where we're getting serious and then we get comedic again. It always starts comedic, most of it is, and then it ends comedic, even if it takes a serious turn in the middle or towards the end. So, because you want to hit them over the head with comedy and you want to leave them with comedy. Like so that's what we do from the very opening scene where you've got all these kids there. But then, we meet Tucker and Dale. We have our own bias. Maybe not about Alan Tudyk, right? But maybe, I don't know, because he could totally play a horror guy, right? But so we have our own bias on what this is going to be like. And then we have the first conversation with Tucker and Dale, where Tucker is being loving to Dale and telling him, you're a good guy, and that's the first realization of, I misjudged them, like immediately. But then it's funny, like they're always funny and the whole time and lovable. And so they establish that right off the bat, and they never leave it. They never leave them being less lovable than how you meet them, or how you realize that they are. So yeah, it's interesting. So I think that if I would have seen this before, or when we were talking about this other project that we've been working on, I would have had a much clearer picture of how this could come about, right?
Yeah.
Like see, writing, so this I just had this thought, like, for any writers out there, this is a good exercise, right? And so I've been doing this thing in my songwriting where I will, if I'm not feeling something, an idea, I'll leave it and I'll give myself 20 or 30 minutes to write a whole nother idea, right? Like, entirely. Like, okay, I love where this song is going, but I'm hitting a wall on a melody. I don't know what to do. I'm frustrated. I'm never going to finish anything. I suck. I'm terrible. Get rid of it, put it away, start from a blank slate, write something else. You have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, go. And that really helps, right? That really helps me. It's just one idea of many, right? This would be a good example of an exercise for a writer, a screenwriter, to say, you have Alan Tudyk in your film, right? And we're going to call it a horror comedy. Picture him in your mind and write a part for this guy, right? Who knows what it's going to turn out to be? You have no preconceived notion. You don't know the end. You don't know the beginning. You don't know anything that's going to happen. You just write, and you write with his face in your mind. And I feel like just dumbing everything down, like, part of the problem with writing, and I'm including myself 100% in that, is that I have too many possibilities. So because I have so many possibilities, I don't ever write anything that is locked into one idea. I'm like bouncing around all over the place, throwing shit at the wall, see what sticks, and it just is a mess sometimes. But if I can boil it down to, I like this one sound, I'm going to write stuff around this one sound, or around this one instrument that I'm feeling at this moment, then by the time I look back on it after 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, I'm like, wow, there's no way I would ever have come up with this in my brain and said, okay, now let me make this happen, because I have this in my brain. I find this one thing and I build around it. So this would be a cool exercise of, like, have an actor in your mind, write a short story with their face in your mind, and see what happens. Because
that's such a good idea.
I just feel like,
I
just feel like this had to happen for this.
Specific, and it's limited. And those are two of the things that sometimes create some of the best ideas, the understanding of your limitations of, I have so many things, production wise, that I have access to, and I have no budget. So here's what I got. Here are the actors that I have, and go. But sometimes I think if you're probably, have a little bit more money, you do run into some of these blocks where you do have endless options. And so maybe sometimes that would be a fun exercise. I'm probably going to try that out. Like, I'll write a short story with whoever, Alan Tudyk in mind, and see where it takes me. You just don't know. It doesn't necessarily mean you need him for that role, but it's a great entry into, a new creative element of here's a story that I never would have thought of otherwise.
Yeah. That's that. And I also try to write songs that already exist. I think we've talked about that before,
Yeah.
I'm going to write Airbag today. And it never turns out exactly the same. And if it does, you just change a few chords or whatever, and it's fine. But, like, it just gets you going. It gives you an idea. And I'm only talking about this because the screenplay was so perfect in this film. I just loved. I didn't feel like anything should have been cut. I just thought it was really tight and important all the time, and moved the story along, and you had characters come in and out when they needed to, like the cop. Mm-hmm. We see him once, so we know who he is. We establish who he is in the typical pull the guys over kind of thing and then let them go. It's very, I've used the word trope a lot in this episode, but it's, there's a lot in there.
Yep.
And they identify it.
Yep.
Here's the cop. Oh, here's the cop again, and now he's dead. So, but that's all important,
It is. It absolutely is. And the fact that not only here's the cop again, but the worry is there's no way this guy's going to believe us. And they have that conversation within the film, right? Where Dale is like, let's call the cops. And Tucker's like, and tell them what? What moron is going to believe this story that a bunch of kids are killing themselves? And literally the cop pulls up. They tell him that story. And he says, what kind of moron do you think I am? Like, he literally says the exact same thing that they're afraid of. But it becomes their bailout. Like, this is how we get out of this situation. And then the writers take it away. They give you like the thing you fear, authority, and yet it works. Oh God, this is it. This is our escape clause. Oh no, we're going to yank that away and make the characters figure it out anyway. Like in every avenue, they really build a very strong story, and they make everyone earn it. It's freaking fantastic,
dude. And the setup with how the cop dies is so good. Everything, like, they write into things, man. The board on the nail swinging. Oh, we gotta fix that. And then I knew we should have fixed that after it killed him. But also not just that. There's like multiple things that set that whole scene up. So there's the swinging nail board with nails, but also like they catch him in them. He catches them in the most extreme,
right?
Where they're holding half of body by one leg in each hand, and so they're caught literally red-handed. And you would think normally they would just draw the gun, arrest them, take them off, but they tell him they have another kid in the house.
Yeah.
Oh, you have another kid in the house. So that draws him into the house. And she's knocked out, so she can't come out. So he has to go in the house. He doesn't want to draw the gun because he doesn't know what could happen. Maybe they will kill her if he's like threatening them outside the house. So he's like trying to play it cool and go inside the house.
I feel like
the
he
kids
just
are like,
had a
don't
beat
go
on
inside
him.
the house. But
I felt like he just had a
What?
beat on him that he was like, these guys are just morons. And I know it looks bad, but this story is so absurd. I kind of have to take it serious. Like, I don't know.
I don't know, but it was just the writing they wrote into that scene, like they set it up 2 and 3 different ways, of why that had to happen in that way.
That's a great point. Because we already knew the faulty board was established and the fact that he knocked her out was established. And that is a great excuse to go in and get another version of the story, and to see the girl and
to get hit with the board.
And then get hit with the board. Perfect. Nice. Any final thoughts?
My only final thought is just in that scene and in other scenes, like putting your protagonist in situations where you cannot think of a way that they could possibly get out of it.
Yeah,
is really important for the storytelling. In general, I think, not just in this movie, but like in any kind of other drama or whatever, because it's important to keeps the viewer on their toes. I'm constantly thinking of how could I, if I was writing this, how could I write them out of this? Oh man, I don't know. Oh, the board. That's right. Well, why would he even go in there? Oh, because she's knocked out, and they said they had another kid inside. Like put them in scenarios where it's impossible for them to get out of it, and then write them out of it. Like think of the worst possible thing. You're literally falling from 30,000 feet without a parachute. How could you possibly survive? And then just write them out of it. Find a way.
That's awesome.
And then you go back, 10, 20 pages and you write stuff to lead into that,
That's the thing. It's like you do have to write it. The sooner the better. You can't write foreshadowing 5 minutes before it happens because the audience is going to be right there with you. But if you write it early enough that we forget about those things. And they even remind you once, right, where she's leaning back in her chair and Dale is like, no, don't do that. She's like, but they kind of disarm you in the reminding of it because she takes it in the sense of, yeah, you're right. I'm probably not good enough to be a, a psychologist. He's like, no, I think you can be whatever you want. I'm just saying that that's not a sturdy board. And so you kind of become more concerned with their relationship than with the danger that he just kind of pulled her out of. And so in that sense, it's a double whammy. Like, you just got reminded of this danger that helps you remember it when it actually counts. But it also reinvests you in their relationship on an emotional level, which is more important. Yeah. Such good writing. God.
It's so good. Which is funny. I didn't think that I would be talking about how good the writing is, but I mean, it really is great. I loved it. I would recommend it to anybody. It's just so much fun. It's definitely a popcorn movie. Make some corn and enjoy.
Heck to the yeah. Nice. So what are you going to recommend this week?
So this week I came across this clip again. You've probably seen. I've sent it to you before, and you've probably seen it 100 times. I can't watch it enough, and it really just like, well, whatever. It's the, and I'll send it to you. I'll send you the link. It's the YouTube clip of the audition, Henry Thomas's audition for E.T., where he literally books the gig immediately. Like, they say, you can hear him on camera say, and the title of the video is, "Okay, kid, you got the job." At the end of it.
What?
It's unbelievable. This kid, I mean, you've seen E.T. Everybody's probably seen E.T. You know who I'm talking about. The main kid.
Elliot.
It's his audition tape. Yeah, it's his audition, and they walk him through it. The guy who's auditioning with him is just, he's great too. But like this kid is just unbelievable, and it really is inspiring as an actor to see. Man, this little kid has just got it. Man, he's just put his whole soul into this moment with this creature, and he's in love with it. And it's unbelievable.
I'm excited. I'm sure I've seen it at some point, but I definitely haven't seen it in a while. But also, as a by the by, I love that Elliot and E.T. are connected through the naming convention, because Elliot begins with an E, ends with a T, and so there's just this very simple connection through the naming convention that helps you, build a little connection. Nice. So I am going to recommend. This was really hard. I had 3 because Sam Raimi makes some really great, horror comedies, whether you're talking about Evil Dead 2, Dragging Me to Hell. I was really on the fence, and originally I had planned for us to cover Evil Dead 2 this month, but I think we're going to punt for that on next year. That got subbed out we lost a week due to timing reasons. But then I was thinking about Teeth. James Gunn wrote a really crazy movie. But I'm going to recommend, I don't know if it's a horror comedy per se, but it's certainly on the cusp, called Fido. It's this movie called Fido, and it's about a zombie in the 50s. Like, this is 1950s America. There's been a zombie apocalypse, and we've effectively quelled it. And now a kid has a zombie for a pet, and his name is Fido. And so I like the idea, in the same way that Tucker and Dale is playing against types, Fido is playing against type as well. Instead of just a rabid zombie, he's like a pet. And so it's weird, it's hilarious, and definitely worth checking out. And so you'll see that trailer in the show notes, as well as Todd's Henry Thomas audition for E.T. In the show notes as well. But stay tuned. Next week, we are going to cover Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright's breakout film. And don't forget to subscribe, review us on iTunes. If there's a movie or something you want us to cover, let us know. Good chance we'll do it. Very good chance, especially if you drop a review. And if you want to leave a comment on this episode or see the trailer or the audition tape, you can do that at the pestlepodcast.com/Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
And our quote of the day is from Miguel de Cervantes. "The most difficult character in comedy is that of the fool, and he must be no simpleton that plays that part." I mean, I think we covered that
Yeah.
You know, that exact thing.
It's hard, man. Like, for those who don't know, Cervantes wrote Don Quixote, which, if you're not familiar with that, I think we all generally, I haven't read it yet. That's on my list. A very long reading list. But it's the central concept is there's this man who wants to civilize society. And so he's on a mission to civilize. And he's also a bit of a fool. He's an idiot. And so he sees danger where there is none. And this is where the phrase tilting at windmills comes from, because he looks and sees what everyone else sees as a windmill, he sees as a dragon. He has to go slay the dragon. So he's tilting at like a knight at a dragon, which is, a windmill. And so, I just thought from his perspective, that's really interesting. And I think it's absolutely true. It's hard to play an idiot, on purpose, because it's easy to over-indicate or overplay that part, but playing it with genuinity and sincerity, it requires a level of intellect and intelligence that you may not, suspect if you're just an audience member watching and enjoying, this moron.
Yeah.
And in that way, I really love the casting decisions in this film. They just absolutely nailed it. Tucker and Dale are absolutely brilliant.
It probably takes a very selfless person, because I think that all the, like, most of the time, and I'm including myself in this, we try to portray ourselves as smart individuals, right? As smart people who have it together and, know our shit. And in the case of playing a fool, you have to be able to literally put yourself in the shoes of someone, like in this example, of someone who, so Tucker, Alan Tudyk is a great example. Like, you got to be okay with putting yourself in a position where you're dopey, but you're proud of, you don't think you're dopey. Like, you're proud of what you know, and you're sure of it, right? And it's kind of a hard thing to put yourself into, really, like, to actually put yourself into that and play that well. It's one thing to think about it. It's another thing to actually, like, be it, Yeah.
There's this core concept that acting coaches in general, one of my favorite acting coaches, Carol Hickey, comments, there's this phrase, fight for your character, and it's this idea that it's easy as someone reading the part of someone else, reading a character description or the lines that this person says, and you want to not judge this person. It's easy. It would have been really easy for Alan Tudyk to read this part and say, oh, this guy's a moron, so I'm going to play him like a moron. But now you're not fighting for your character. You're not fighting for the humanity in that person. And that is very genuine. That loves his buddy Dale. Like, this guy wants to see Dale succeed. He wants to see him get the best, and he thinks he deserves the best. And he's not just saying words, to connive him or to sound like an idiot. He never tries to sound like a moron. He never tries to sound dopey. He's just saying the lines in a way that he believes in his character, and his character is fighting for a thing. And we as the audience get the joy of judging these characters. But you never feel like they are judging themselves. The actor is never judging and participating in that judgment.
Yeah, you said it better than me. That's exactly it, for sure.
But it's such a great point. Thank you so much, man. Dude, great conversation, man.
Yeah, man, this is great. As for most of these episodes, you never know where we're going to get or where we're going to go. And I'm always surprised, or most of the time I'm surprised about when we kind of like go to places like this when we don't expect it. Like I don't expect to have a deep conversation, after watching, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, but we always find a way.
Always.
I guess. Oh man, so much fun. Thank you for your insight, and thank you guys so much for listening. Please, like Wes said, subscribe, give us a review, share us with your friends. All of those things, they really help. If you suggest a movie, I promise you, we'll get to it. Pretty much promise you, we'll get to it. Anyway, until next week, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
Go watch some movies.